The US stock market has hit another record overnight. The other record, great news for the federal budget, is iron ore prices, which have climbed above $200 US a tonne for the first time in its history. Incredible stuff, isn't it? Business editor Ross Greenwood joins me live now to explain. Ross, good morning to you.
Morning, Pete.
More records for the market. Iron ore, the recovery is playing right into the hands of the Treasurer.
It absolutely is. And consider right now that the government has got the iron ore price in last year's budget at just $55 US a tonne. Whereas right now, overnight, this iron ore price has gone beyond $200 for the very first time. Now, you and I have talked about this before. One of the unusual aspects of this mining boom that we're seeing right now is that the Australian dollar has not taken off. In fact, yesterday, as a result of those bilateral agreements with China, those dialogues actually, now being knocked off, the dollar fell. So here's the forecast. The current forecast, $55 a tonne. It's currently sitting above $200 US a tonne.
Wow.
Now, if we go to the budget impact of this, it is really significant. For every $10 that the iron ore price is above that $55, what you see is that there's around $3.4 billion of extra economic activity in Australia. And indeed, on top of that, what you see is an extra $500 million, $500 million comes into the government. Now, that's for every $10. Now, bear in mind right now that the price of iron ore is $145 above where it is. So that's 14.5 times. So you're talking, even in this year, more than $7 billion in extra money coming into the government's coffers that was not budgeted for. Now, what happens is the government is notoriously conservative on this. And so one of the key numbers to be looking at on Tuesday night when the budget comes out is its forecast for iron ore. My suggestion is they might raise it to $70 or $65. They won't take it all the way up to where it is today. They've always been notoriously conservative about forecasting commodity prices inside the budget.
Do you think they're worried about Brazil's iron ore coming back online next year, because that might cause China to shift its attention to Brazil rather than take our own, given the trade stoush that's going on?
Can I just say, there's no doubt that if China had the opportunity, it would be taking Brazilian iron ore, it would be taking the iron ore. It's being rapidly developed in Africa right now. But the truth is that they don't have any choice right now.
Yeah.
Australia is the only place they can take the iron ore from. Now, what they are doing is stockpiling massive amounts of iron ore, building new areas to stockpile even more iron ore. That's one of the things driving the price right now. And also the lack of supply from Brazil. But the problem is Brazil's supply over a very long period of time, though the iron ore's good, is very patchy. There's always been either mine disasters, there's been a lack of supply, shipping accidents, whatever it might be. And so the one thing about Australia's supply, just 11 days sail from iron ore Port Hedland that arrives in China. That's another key reason as to why Australia's iron ore is always more competitive than other parts of the world.
One of the biggest beneficiaries of the iron ore boom, Rio Tinto, had a bruising encounter at its annual meeting in Perth late yesterday.
It really did. So this was a massive protest vote over the blowing up of the Juukan Gorge. Now, in this case, there was a remuneration report that saw senior executives not only take hundreds of millions of dollars in bonuses, plus also shares that they had been awarded. These were executives who were held accountable by the company and the shareholders for the blowing up of Juukan Gorge. The former chief executive, Jean-Sébastien Jacques, is amongst one of those. Now, what happened yesterday is one of the largest protest votes against remuneration report. 60.8% of the shareholders voted against that report. Still, the company says it's, trying to improve itself. One little thing they did, and I'll just play this little thing for you. It's about how a company says sorry. What does it do to tell you that they're really sorry? Well, in this case, they went to their staff and asked them, when you found out we blew up Juukan Gorge, what did you think? Here's just a little of the clip they played yesterday at that annual meeting.
Remember really clearly when I found out about Juukan Gorge.
I was sitting on my couch before work and my leader sent me a text message and said, watch the news.
I was on my way to work and I heard it on the news, and I actually realised that I had walked in those caves with the elders, the PKKP elders.
My messages started pinging, going off. Like every few seconds there was another message.
I just couldn't understand how we could get to that point and such an incident could happen given our watertight policies and procedures.
Incredible, isn't it? Yeah. What's the song? The hardest word to say, I'm sorry.
Well, that's right. Well, they've said it many times and we'll say it many times, a little like the banks after the annual report. But it's interesting just noting how companies go about trying to improve their community support. Really interesting thing also, just on the subject of China, remember that Rio Tinto's major shareholder is the Chinese company Chinalco. Second part about that, remember that they are right now together developing one of the competitive iron ore mines in Africa to the iron ore mines in Port Hedland. So it's really interesting, the geopolitical stuff, which they did not want to buy into under any circumstances yesterday.
I heard an interesting stat on the radio this morning, actually, that the profits or the revenue that we're getting from iron ore makes up for all of the other exports that we have lost through the stoush.
And more, and much, much more. There's no doubt about that. Pretty important.
All right, as for the Reserve Bank, released its latest monetary policy report, Ross, we got a hint of what's in it at the latest rates decision on Tuesday.
Yeah, so on Tuesday, they basically upgraded their forecast for Australia's economy, which is all what we're talking about. It's iron ore in particular, but it's more people in the jobs market. If more people are in the jobs market, then quite clearly the economy's improving because those people are paying tax and they're not collecting welfare. So that's the key. So we'll pick this up later on this morning, and it is one of the key points because they bring these out quarterly, and it gives you a sense also just where the Reserve Bank might be in lockstep, you sense, with the government. Neither of these parties right now is going to take any risk on slowing the economy, and as a result, stimulus from the Reserve Bank and stimulus from the government through this budget is going to be ongoing, there's no doubt, and that's what's driving markets. The Wall Street market at record levels last night, iron ore prices at record levels. And the only thing that's actually struggling a bit at the moment, as I say, is our Australian dollar.
Well, OK, well, it'll be interesting next week, see how much Josh Frydenberg's spending.
Indeed, it'll be a lot. Understand, he's got money in his pocket and he will not take any chances. He's going to keep borrowing and going to keep spending.
OK, all right, Ross Greenwood, our finance editor. Appreciate that, Ross.
No problems at all.
We'll see you there, actually.
Will do.
Broadcasting live with you next week. Thank you, Ross.